Welcome to our channel. We are sincerely trying to choose interesting stories, so we would really like to see your subscription.
When I grew suspicious of my wife Emily cheating, I took the step of hiring a private detective. Over the past month, Emily's behavior had changed dramatically, seemingly unaware of her own transformation. She became distant, contemptuous, and less talkative. During phone calls, she consistently retreated to another room, making it clear she didn't want anyone overhearing. The frequency and intensity of our arguments escalated, each fight becoming louder and more absurd. Juggling the demands of my small business for the past 2 years, which required considerable attention and growth, I decided to act without overthinking. The private detective, though expensive, demonstrated the utmost professionalism. He successfully tracked Emily's car and even monitored her activities at work. After 2 days, I received the revealing audio recordings. As I listened, I heard a conversation between Emily and a man, her colleague. The chat made it evident that they had engaged in intimate acts several times near work, including within the office. The lover expressed frustration about the constant need to conceal their affair and proposed getting a hotel room for a more relaxed and private setting. The following day, Emily informed me that she planned to spend Saturday with some girlfriends, celebrating a work promotion and staying over at one of their places. Despite her blatant lie, I concealed my emotions and pretended to believe her. By then, I had discovered that her colleague was also married. Swiftly, I contacted the man's wife, proposing to meet at a cafe on Saturday. The small, cozy cafe offered a vantage point overlooking the entrance of the hotel where the lovers were set to rendezvous. The blatant lie about celebrating a work promotion painfully scratched at my heart, but I managed to restrain my emotions and pretended to believe Emily's story. By then, I already knew that her colleague was also married. Swiftly, I contacted the man's wife, Vanessa, proposing to meet at a cafe on Saturday. The small, cozy cafe had windows overlooking the entrance of the hotel where the lovers were planning to rendezvous. I openly shared the truth with Vanessa, letting her listen to the recorded dialogue where they set up the meeting. Although she listened carefully, her demand for more convincing evidence only left her frowning. In response, I smirked, preparing for the unfolding drama. Offering Vanessa a glass of wine, we waited for the cheaters. The summer night outside the cafe windows was clear, making it easy to recognize them. They didn't keep us waiting long. Soon, the couple, Emily in her bright red coat and Vanessa's husband in a blue suit, approached the prestigious establishment hand in hand. Witnessing the lovers tenderly kiss at the hotel entrance, tears filled Vanessa's eyes as her palm covered her mouth in surprise. Rather than being angry, which I had anticipated, she cried. Out loud, I asked her to pull herself together. Unhurriedly, we left the cozy cafe and cautiously made our way inside, hoping to remain unnoticed until the right moment. Vanessa and I decided not to confront our spouses right away. Instead, I decided to head down the first floor hallway toward the room where Emily and her lover had disappeared. Quietly approaching the door, I placed my ear against it, hoping to catch any sounds and unravel the truth about what was happening behind it. Despite the discomfort, I needed to know. To my surprise, it was eerily quiet inside, devoid of any talking or other sounds. I exchanged bewildered glances with Vanessa. Maybe Emily and her lover had already finished and fallen asleep or were in the shower. Determined to confirm, I pressed my ear closer to the door and suddenly heard a soft moan in Emily's familiar voice, followed by another, this time male. Vanessa, visibly disturbed, recoiled from the door, her face pale and twisted in disgust. From her frantic gaze, I quickly gathered that she was eager to burst into the room, interrupt the act of betrayal, and possibly retaliate against her husband. However, I intervened, raising my hand to stop her and positioned myself in front of the door. Waiting a few seconds, I loudly knocked on the door, commanding, "Open up! It's security!" The sounds of passion immediately ceased, replaced by indignant voices and a brief commotion. The room door cracked open, revealing the lover's annoyed face, covered only by a white sheet around his waist to conceal his nudity. Without uttering a word or providing an explanation, I forcefully swung the door open wide and delivered a powerful punch to the lover's face. The sound of a broken nose echoed, and bright red blood sprayed in all directions, accompanied by frightened female screams, either Emily's or Vanessa's. I no longer cared. A veil of intense fury clouded my vision. While the lover was still reeling from the shock of pain and unable to resist, I grabbed all their clothes and hurled them out of the window, practically dragging my wife, covered only in a blanket, out into the hallway by her hair. I then proceeded to the street, heading straight to my car. I left the lover at the mercy of my wife, who had pounced on him with fists and screams. As they went outside, Emily was hysterically crying and pleading with me to stop, fearing I would harm her. Instead, I brought her to my car, roughly seated her in the passenger seat, and positioned myself in the driver's seat. I turned on my phone and forced her to confess her infidelity on camera, detailing the sordid details. Despite her pleas for me not to do it, I remained cold and uncompromising. I had no doubts about my actions, and each of her pleas only intensified the gravity of the situation. Upon Emily's completion of her recount, I dialed her father's number and instructed her to repeat everything she had confessed on camera. Witnessing her father's disapproval was the ultimate blow for Emily, knowing he had experienced his former wife's infidelity and considered it a grave sin. Her prediction proved accurate. Learning of his daughter's betrayal, he sided with me, treating me like a son and respecting me as a good business partner. Using crude words and expressions, her father unabashedly referred to Emily as the second disgusting woman in his life and abruptly hung up without saying goodbye. I reveled in triumph, not physically harming my wife, but morally breaking her down, exploiting her vulnerabilities, and subjecting her to humiliation. Without another word, I drove her to her sister's place, and the following day, I packed all of Emily's belongings in suitcases, erasing every reminder of her from the apartment. On Monday, I emailed her confession video to her boss and subsequently called to inform him of the actions of his 2 employees. I asserted that their continued presence at the company would lead me to file a lawsuit, leveraging connections with lawyers and judges, an utter fabrication, but my convincing anger worked. The boss promptly fired the adulterous couple, and it took a few days for the shock to wear off. Despite Emily's persistent attempts to explain herself and beg for a second chance through several weeks, I adamantly refused to engage with her. However, one day her sister called me with a trembling voice, revealing that Emily had stopped eating, talking, and was behaving erratically around others. I recommended she call an ambulance before matters escalated too far, showing no intention of altering my decision out of pity for her. The next day, the psychiatric clinic informed me that my wife was under observation. The psychiatrist requested a meeting to discuss Emily's condition personally. I went there with some apprehension, understanding that I played a role in driving her to this state. The psychiatrist, a pleasant young man, explained that Emily had suffered a serious nervous breakdown due to her experiences, including the humiliation I had inflicted by forcing her to confess her infidelities while half naked. Now, Emily needed treatment and psychotherapy to return to normal life. Emily herself appeared unhealthy, a mere shadow of her former self. In just a few weeks, she had lost at least 20 kilograms, along with all her beauty. She confessed that she tried to keep the affair a secret, but cheated because I worked too much. These words angered me, and I deemed it nonsense, recalling her past complaints about lacking money and urging me to go into business for a better living. The argument escalated into shouting, and Emily's psychiatrist nearly threw me out of the ward, fearing it could cause another nervous breakdown for his patient. Unexpectedly, Emily managed to compose herself and requested her doctor to leave the room. The surprised psychiatrist exited but lingered just outside the door, collecting his emotions and taking a deep breath. I suggested that Emily reflect on the reasons behind everything that had transpired. Her passionate affair with her lover now belonged to the past. Her beloved father was disappointed and condemned her misdeeds, and she had lost her prestigious job. Rectifying this situation would require serious effort and, above all, a considerable amount of time. Overwhelmed with emotion, Emily, unable to hold back tears, pleaded with me not to leave her. She expressed her fear of not knowing how to cope without my support. Aside from her sister, Emily felt she had no one left. I remained silent for an extended period, observing my pitiful wife and inexplicably thinking about Vanessa, the beautiful foreign woman betrayed by her loved one. I was still in touch with the lover's wife and knew they were living together under the same roof. After the clinic visit, I contemplated meeting Vanessa and spending time together. Perhaps I felt some connection to her, given that we had both experienced betrayal. Maybe I wanted to get back at the lover one last time, and I didn't feel any pangs of conscience when I openly suggested Vanessa get a hotel room. Eyes wide in surprise, she emphasized that she was a married woman. I reminded her that I was technically a married man too, and the same circumstances hadn't stopped our spouses from having fun together, so why should anything stop us from doing the same? Honestly, I expected a polite rebuttal, but to my surprise, Vanessa sadly smiled and said,
Just please don't take me to that crappy hotel.
We booked a very nice room at another upscale hotel and spent the next 2 days getting to know each other and occasionally giving in to passion. This continued for about 2 months. As I contemplated what to do next, my anger had subsided, but something kept nagging at me. Eventually, I decided to get a divorce. Several years have passed since those events, and I am grateful to fate for that occasion because now I live only for my own pleasure.